Under the slate-gray sky, under clouds that churned with shifting hues of purple and green, there lay an ocean that stretched to every horizon. Its currents were not of ordinary water. They rolled with shimmering illusions, impossible shapes, and whispers that clung to the mind like a fever. Even the scent of the brine felt invasive, lacing the air with a strange sweetness that both enchanted and unsettled. Clinging to a windswept cliff overlooking this ocean was a battered lighthouse, its walls once white, but now stained by centuries of salt and sorrow. Inside it, on a narrow balcony, stood Cienne, a young scholar who had spent her life searching for truths hidden just out of reach. For weeks, Cienne had been studying what everyone called the Sea of Delusion, convinced that her keen intellect and unwavering determination could unravel its secrets. She took notes in thick journals, scribbling down every fluctuation in the tide, every fleeting voice that seemed to call from the waves. She believed that with careful documentation, reason could prevail over chaos. Hanging from a silver chain around her neck was a small vial. It contained a single droplet of water she had found deep in the caves beneath the lighthouse, a water so pure it almost glowed in the dark. She had tested it relentlessly, boiling and distilling it, until she finally believed this was a drop of sanity, capable of shielding her mind from whatever phantasms rose from the ocean below. When she felt the eerie pull from the Sea of Delusion at night, when the waves roared and the moonlight flickered with impossible shapes, she'd clutch that vial. In those moments, her fear would recede. Facts and reason glowed in her thoughts, anchoring her to reality. Yet, the delusional tide was relentless. Night after night, Cienne discovered that the illusions grew bolder. She could hear her name whispered among the waves, could see faint figures standing on the surface of the water, beckoning her closer. Their faces bore expressions of wonder and ecstasy. Whenever she trained her telescope on them, they faded away into the swirling gloom. The townspeople had long since left, or worse, surrendered themselves to the illusions. Some believed the sea offered a better life, a dream unbound by reason. Others simply gave up after their minds broke under the onslaught of whispering voices. But Cienne stayed. She believed knowledge and courage could keep her safe. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Cienne noticed the water was eerily still. The hush that settled over the ocean made her heart pound in her ears. Something was coming. She could feel it. She gripped the vial tight, her breathing shallow. A sudden roar shattered the silence. A colossal wave, shot through with sickly green luminescence, rose like a living wall. It loomed above the lighthouse before crashing down. The force splintered the balcony railing, shook the walls, and flooded the lower floors. Cienne barely maintained her footing, clinging to the rusted iron rung on the wall. When the water receded, she found herself ankle-deep in swirling, dreamlike foam. She could feel tendrils of some intangible force tugging at her mind, threads of illusions trying to weave into her every thought. The drop of sanity around her neck glimmered, a soft, pulsing glow. Cienne's heartbeat thundered. She could sense her rational thoughts fighting to stay afloat. She whispered to herself, "I can withstand this. I'm stronger than these illusions." But the sea answered with another crash of thunderous water. This time it wasn't just force, it was will. The ocean itself seemed alive with an intent to absorb every living thing, to beckon them into this shimmering dreamscape. Its illusions targeted Cienne's memories, her ambitions, her worries. They twisted her regrets into false hopes, offered grand visions of everything she could be if she let go of reason and simply surrendered. For a fleeting moment, she felt the droplet pushing back. In her mind's eye, she saw a beacon of clarity, a small, steady light warding off the swirling chaos. She heard her own voice, stern and composed, reminding her of every lesson she had learned, of her unwavering determination to understand the unknown. Yet the illusions were legion, infinite in cunning and scope. Like thousands of voices chanting in unison, they overcame the single, solitary defense. Cienne gasped, dizzy as the line between what was real and what was hallucination blurred. She saw the lighthouse floor undulating like liquid beneath her feet. The walls stretched like fabric in the wind. Her hands trembled, and when she looked at her reflection in the water, it changed from her own face into countless strangers' eyes, and back again. Desperate, she yanked the vial from around her neck and held it aloft, as if that meager droplet of sanity could halt an entire ocean of madness. Its glow flickered, valiantly flaring against the dark waves that surged closer. For a moment, just a moment, a sense of calm swept through Cien's mind. But the ocean's next onslaught shattered that calm. A towering wave, thrumming with the hum of countless voices, crashed upon the lighthouse balcony, sweeping Cien off her feet. As the water closed over her head, she felt the chain slip from her fingers, her chest constricted. She tried to swim upward, to fight, but the relentless undertow pulled her deeper into murky depths. All around her flickered illusions, a perfect childhood she never had, old dreams she had once abandoned, a future triumphant and golden. She felt drawn to these visions against all logic. Her lungs burned, her limbs grew heavy, but in the swirl of illusions, everything else became strangely comforting. Reason told her to struggle, but the promise of an untroubled dream was overpowering. In that moment, Cien realized she was drowning, not only in water, but in delusion. She felt one final, stuttering beat of clarity. Even the cleverest mind, even the bravest heart, could be overwhelmed when the sheer force of fantasy outmatched reality. The droplet of sanity had offered a spark, but it wasn't enough to combat a sea that thrived on the deepest desires and fears of all who lived. A last bubble of air escaped her lips. The illusions enveloped her with a gentle finality. As darkness crept in, she felt neither victory nor shame, only a hollow acceptance, tinged with a faint echo of regret that her will, though strong, was not enough. On the surface, the ocean returned to its quiet, churning swirl, lit by the moon's pale glow. Somewhere beneath those waves, the last flicker of the droplet's light guttered and died. On the shore, battered journals and broken wood littered the sand, silent testaments to Cien's resolve and courage, and to the unfathomable might of an illusion so vast that neither intelligence nor bravery alone could withstand it. Far out on the horizon, the sea of delusion rolled onward, endless and unmoved by a single drop of sanity, carrying with it another lonely soul lost to its depths.